Author is funded by the Pacific Northwest Writers Association, supporting writers from pen to publication since 1955. To learn more about the PNWA and their yearly conference, please go to pnwa.org. Hi, this is Bill Kenower of Author Magazine, and I'm here at Delancey Restaurant in Seattle, Washington with Molly Wizenberg, author of Delancey. Molly, welcome to Author.
Thank you so much.
So Molly, in reading this book, reading Delancey, it seems like your two passions, you may have others that you're keeping hidden, but two of your big passions are writing and food.
Yes.
Which you combined about 10 years ago in a blog for the first time called Orangette, is that right?
I started it in the summer of 2004.
2004.
Yeah.
But what prompted you to start doing that? Just you wanted something to do, you were interested, why did you start it?
I think I went to grad school because I wanted somebody to tell me what books to read, and I wanted to keep learning, and
Right.
I was in a program in cultural anthropology, but I didn't really want to be an anthropologist. I didn't want to be a professor. And what I really wanted to do was cook. I wanted to come home at the end of each day, and I wanted to cook, and I wanted to read about cooking and food, and I really loved to write. And so a friend of mine said, do you ever read blogs? You should check this out. This could be a way for you of exploring what it is that keeps bringing you back to food and cooking.
Right. Yeah, one of the nice things about a blog is you don't have to get it perfect.
Yeah.
You can just let it evolve into what it is.
Well, and the nice thing too is that you can always go back and edit it, which is very different from publishing a
That's
book
true.
or a
You can.
magazine or something like that.
That's true.
If you change your mind later, you
Yeah.
can pretend it never happened.
And did
It
you
can
enjoy
disappear.
writing it? You must have liked writing it.
I do. I love writing it.
Still writing.
Yeah, I do. It took me a while to kind of figure out what I was doing with it. It took me a while to figure out that what interests me about food are really the stories that food can tell us, sort of. The way that food is both a constant and a marker of our days. That when we talk about food, when we talk about a meal, it's always in a context, and it's in a context that says a lot about what matters to us, about the people we care about the city we live in. Yeah.
Right, so food is the portal through which you were looking at life.
Exactly. Yeah.
It wasn't just about this tastes like this and this tastes like
Right.
that.
Yeah, I'm not into that.
But you had to find that. That's interesting. You knew you liked food, but this is so much of what the writing process is. You had
Yeah.
to discover why it was you wanted to write about. You just
Yeah.
knew you wanted to.
Yeah, no, I think this is the toughest thing about writing, is trying to figure out what we think about something. And the blog helped me do that. The blog was a place that forced me to keep showing up, because it was this public place that, when you start a blog, if you're lucky enough to get some readers, it's kind of like you have this pact with them. Like, you're going to keep showing
That's
up,
right.
they're going to keep showing up. And for me as a writer, having that accountability was really huge.
Right.
And so I kept showing up and kept trying to figure out, why it was that I was so into food.
Part of the reason I founded Author Magazine and I do these interviews is I've always felt that the process of writing a book is similar to any creative process in life, whether it's a marriage, which is what I often equate it to, or starting a business.
Yeah.
These are my two most common analogies. And so you've now written two books, you have one business and one marriage. Do these things, are they similar in any way?
Oh, for sure, for
Yeah.
sure. I feel like, part of the reason why I wrote this most recent book, Delancey, is when I met my husband, or the man who is now my husband, he was a graduate student in music composition. He had, music had always been his thing. He'd gone to a conservatory for college. He was a saxophonist, he was a composer, and around the time we got married, he was in a PhD program in composition. And, all this adds up to me thinking I was marrying a music professor, or, a composer, or, something in the world of maybe academic music. And what really happened is that 3 months after we got married, he decided that he wanted to try to open a restaurant. And it wasn't totally out of left field. He's worked in restaurants to pay the bills since he was 15. He was working in a restaurant when he was getting his doctorate. He, like me, is a doctorate dropout. Anyway, so it wasn't a total. It wasn't out of nowhere, but it was so far from the life that I thought we were going to have, and so much scarier than the prospect of being married to a professor.
Oh, just a bit.
Yeah, just a little bit. So I'm hard pressed to think of an industry that is more fraught with risk than restaurants.
It's terrible.
They come and they go.
Yep.
And it's a difficult lifestyle for most people. I feel like we've been able to sort of make it what we want it to be. But you're working at night, you're working when other people are playing. A lot of the time you're working on holidays. And it was absolutely not the life that I expected when we got married. And so part of the reason that I wanted to write Delancey was to figure out why I had fought it so much and why I fought it for so long. Because it took me a couple years after this place opened to be able to sort of accept this new shape of my life. And the truth is that this place has been really successful. And I was always grateful for that, but there was just this nagging feeling like, oh, this isn't what I expected. And it took me a long time to let go of that.
What was the hardest part to find? Because writing memoir is such a process of elimination in a way, to try and pare the thing down to the story that it wants to be.
Yeah.
And what was the hardest part for you to find to bring the book together?
The hardest part for me was figuring out how to end it.
Yeah.
And
because it's not over.
Well, it's not. Yeah, it's not over. And the other thing is that with my first book, I kind of sneaked up on the story. I wrote the book out of order. It's basically a collection of little sort of autobiographical essays with a recipe that goes with each. And because it was that structure, I got to write it completely out of order. And it was only at the end that I thought, okay, well, this is telling this particular story. And part of my goal with Delancey was to learn how to write a book in a way, to learn how to see the story ahead of time, and to try to write a book that felt like a more complete story to me. But the hardest part was figuring out how to end it because it's not finished, and also because even though I now can't imagine my life without this restaurant, and it's such a huge part of my marriage, it's such a huge part of my whole world. It doesn't mean that I don't still struggle with it sometimes.
Right.
A restaurant it never stops moving. It just never stops changing. You think everything is great, and then your walk-in fridge dies.
Right.
Or you go away on vacation and somebody throws a rock through the front door. You know what I mean? Stuff just happens. And so I wanted to find a way to end the book that was realistic. Right. That acknowledged that I do feel incredibly lucky to get to do this, to get to have this place that is my second home, but that it will always be a challenge and it always pushes me.
Well, memoir is always about what we've learned, I think. I mean, that's the change within you, is always, and that's where it seemed like you ended the story, is how did this experience change me?
Yeah.
What shifted?
Yeah.
What was I before and what am I now?
Yeah. Yeah, I feel like the restaurant pushed me sort of right to my limits and over them. It really, I think that I thought I could become a different kind of person by embracing the restaurant. I think I thought, okay, well, I'm done with writing. I'm gonna be a cook now. I thought that I could reinvent myself, and I hoped that was the case, because I thought that was the only way, really, for me to live with the restaurant. But the truth is there was something really both helpful and painful about seeing my limits that way.
Yeah.
And it helped me to understand better what role I can play in a place like this, and how I can support my spouse while hanging on to my own needs and goals. It really helped me to see exactly where I stood and where I wanted to be standing.
All right, well, Molly, I've got one more question for you. And what I'd like you to do is finish this sentence for me.
Oh, no.
Oh, yes. You
okay.
ready? If writing has taught me anything, it has taught me what?
Writing has taught me to slow down and look for the big picture. I think I can be a real detailed person, which is good for a writer, I think. You know, I can really get stuck in the details. But the truth is you know, in the grand scheme of life, we can make ourselves crazy looking only at details. And writing helps me to step back and see the big picture and get perspective, particularly on my life, because I write a lot about my own life.